Hi, this is a short video for MC Lyons, or Lions. It's MCLYNOS, who has a channel on YouTube, and he requested a look at the game Holy War. I mentioned his channel because I think it's a great channel for watching somebody in the process of designing a game. So it doesn't have sort of like game reviews and so forth like that. But if you're interested in watching and listening to someone as they design a game and go through the thinking process and play testing and so forth, it's very interesting. Very boring if you're not into that, I expect. But something different, something I would recommend. Anyway, on to the game now. Holy War. So it's a microgame from 1979, microgame number 39, published by Metagaming, and the designer was Lynn Willis. What I intend to do in this video is to read you a few excerpts from the instruction booklet, show you some of the pieces, and then via a little gameplay show you how the game plays, and then that will be it. So without further ado, let me start with the rationale behind the game. Oh, and even before that, let me tell you, this is the only game I know of that quotes the poet E. Cummings on the introduction. "We doctors know a hopeless case if listen. There's a hell of a good universe next door. Let's go." So on that premise, this game is about lacking lungs, tongue or mouth. Properly, he had no consonantal name. However, a self-referential symbol set, the segments of which were also used to label amino acids, yields the transliteration amtic, one both fair and indicative of the being's logical capacity. Now there's these 2 pages and a little bit there are the rationale, and it's kind of like it's the background for the game. It's called Holy War. It's not about jihadists and so forth on Earth, but instead it's essentially about a kind of a god who's created several universes. He notices one of his universes is perhaps going a bit wonky, and he's thinking about turning it off. This universe is represented thus by hexagons on this piece of paper, which are further... let me see if I can get a bit more light on that. Does that help? Each hexagon has a further 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hexagons within it, denoting 3-dimensionality. So the biggest hexagon within the major hex is the sort of topmost, and the smallest is the downmost hexagon. So you've got a whole 3-dimensional universe represented here. I will continue reading from the instructional booklet. "Even as Amtic considered closing the circuit to send his creation back to a chaos of stripped and lifeless atoms, the great warships of the Altani nosed outwards to the stars." So what you have here on the board, you maybe can't see so well at the moment, that's the maximum zoom I have, is you have like a sensor duct or some space there, and a sensor space here at the top and the bottom of the universe, and through these points is how the Altani, these are the beings that live in the universe, have ascertained that the god Amtic communicates with this universe, sees what's going on and so forth. And so there's 2 things going on. One is that the beings here are trying to interact with that god through one of those or both of those 2 ducts. And the other thing is that one faction of the Altani are trying to send prayers to the gods, say, don't turn the universe off. And the other faction are actually kind of like atheists, and they want to lob a star through one of the ducts, and thereby they think that they will be able to kind of like excommunicate the god from their universe, and then carry on sort of on their own. So we've got a nice little parable there. Take it as you will. I'm going to read a little bit more from the book. It's got some nice illustrations, and it has some more poetry, this time by Andrew Marvell, an English poet from back in the day. Humility alone designs those short but admirable lines, by which, ungirt and unconstrained, things greater are in less contained. So you can see where the designer was going in his imagination, how he kind of couched the game. You have you've got the rationale, then you have game components. It's basically starships. This is a Star Blaster. They have a launched weapons rating, a psychic weapons rating, and an energy weapons rating. They all move the same, and then they have a crew point activation cost. Here's a demonstration of how movement occurs in the game. Essentially what it's telling us is that this mini hex here is adjacent to that mini hex below it, but it's also adjacent to that mini hex in there, that mini hex there, and it would be adjacent to mini hexes here. And because it's also adjacent to the level below and above it, although none above here because it's the highest level, it's also adjacent to that one below and that one below. In fact, the demonstration, is this, referring to that hex, and that hex. So this hex relates to all those grey hexes. Then you can also see on the board they are marked in red. Here it's just these curvy lines. These are warp lines. So every ship can move a maximum of 1 mini hex a turn. So a ship here could go there, or there, or there, or there, or there, or there, or there. You get the picture. Or they can take these warp. That's like, I think they call that interstellar jumps. Or you can, instead of going via interstellar space, which is only 1 hex a turn, you can take a warp line. So you could warp straight to there. You don't need to, you can do it interstellar, but you can continue your warp along the line. So you could say warp to there, or you could warp out here, so forth. The thing with warp lines is that an enemy ship could be placed there. So you could warp, you can land on the enemy ship's hex, and then you can have a fight. But you couldn't continue if the enemy ship's blocking you. Then we have stuff about starting the game. Essentially what happens is that you buy starting units with crew points. Each side has 100 crew points to start with to spend. Ships cost from, I think, 11 to 2 crew points. You can see on the board, these are not all the starting ships. I've got ships off map here, and I was using like force counters to denote stacks moving around. Then you've got the game turn sequence, which is the two factions are the Sun Throwers and the Holy Band. The Sun Throwers want to eject the god from the universe by bunging a star at him through his sensory duct and go their own way. The Holy Band want to send God a prayer, say please don't turn us off and give us a second chance. A nice parable. So you have movement, combat, and then there's a neutral judgment phase. So on the board you can't see well, I will do a close-up later on. You've got the whites, which are the Sun Throwers, you've got the darker reds, which are the Holy Band, and then you have some neutrals. There are 15 solar systems. So a solar system is named. So that mini hex is a solar system. That's just a space and space, space and space, space and space, like that. There's 15 solar systems with habitation and stuff and people. So at the start of the game, you take it in turns. One decides to be one side, and then the other side starts by placing what are called star guards. They're essentially sort of markers and static garrison forces on a solar system. So you take it in turns, alternating that with 5 solar systems each, and then 5 remaining become neutral, and there's a possibility of them joining you as the game progresses. And then we have the victory conditions. The victory conditions are interesting. Remember, you've got a sensory duct at the top of the universe here, and one at the bottom of the universe on the other side of the map. The Sun Throwers' victory condition is to drag a star, and they can't drag it along warp lines, the fast route. They have to drag it to a sensory duct, keep it there in the Holy Band player's turn, which, as you recall, goes after the Sun Thrower, and then it's deemed to have been bunged through the duct. They did what they wanted to do. The Holy Bands, they have 2 victory conditions. Their minor victory condition is to stop the Sun Throwers from doing that by the end of turn 7. At that point, they can then optionally, so they could just win a minor victory there. They can optionally continue the game and try to send an emissary of prayer into one of the ducts. And if they manage to do that, then they can win a major victory. The catch there is that every turn after turn 7, they have to roll a d6. And if he rolls a 6, then if he's got an emissary of prayer unit sitting, that's basically like a massive spaceship with loads of holy men on board. If that unit is sitting in a sensor duct and he rolls a 6, they've made contact and convinced the god Amtic not to shut down this universe. If, however, they roll, say in one turn they roll a 2, no joy, then the next turn later, so say that's turn 9, they roll another 2, they've duplicated a previous roll, then the god goes, okay, he flips the switch. So you see there's a bit of a risk there of going for the major victory. But it again gives the Sun Throwers a chance of something to do if they fail their victory condition. Then the rules continue with movement. I explained that. Another thing to mention is that you can buy warp line generators, so that allows spaceships that create warp lines, but they only go one direction. However, that is important because maneuver is a major part of this game, and so jumping along warp lines or whizzing along warp lines is very important. You can see the Sun Throwers, they want to get somewhere quick, and so consequently the Holy Band have to get there quicker and mosterly. So movement explained, combat explained. I'll go into that in a bit. It's rather different, although on a differential something's familiar about it, something's different. Then a bit about the neutrals that can join you, the force counters, which I'm using here instead of having huge stacks, and then a note on space combat. So this is in the instruction booklet. In depicting combat in space, science fiction long has conveyed rather simplistic models of World War I and World War II fighters. Tiny craft, for instance, normally depicted as faster than large lumbering ships. Remember the beginning of Star Wars? But conditions in space are not that egalitarian as on Earth, where you have force trade-offs between mass and heavy weapons versus speed and manoeuvrability. For general expectations, sublight ship speed will be limited by the size of the engine if the types involved are equal, and by the mechanics of relativity, which demand great increments of mass energy for tiny increments of speed. In space, ranges are unlimited by terrain or Earth curvature, etc. In such conditions, the faster ship will be the one also with the bigger and better weapons. Engine performance will tie directly to range and breadth of energy and field weapons. So, the next time you watch Battlestar Galactica, ask yourself how well an F-16 would fare against an energy beam with a diameter of 2,000 kilometers. In space, given quality, bigger is better. So he's saying you can go faster and you can have fantastically massive weapons the bigger you are in space. So then we come to the last essential bit of the instructions are ship notes. So you have it, for example, it begins with the explaining the emissary of prayer, EP, or Vas Val, or fearing tongue. So that's the Altani language in a translation. The fearing tongues ships have a complement of 120 monks, as I explained. So it measures about 7 kilometers long and broad, blah blah. 600,000 tons. And then you have the game use. Then you go on to the field generators. They are 2 kilometers long and mass 4.8 million tons. So you have in the rules, you have essential rules bits and then lots of the essence of the game, the idea behind it, the story. The pressure ships, that's what the sun throwers use to throw stars. Their complement is 2,100 Eltani, and their mass is 2 billion tons. So you can see, and then you have a little bit of the game rules, game use as they call it. So you can see it's packed full of its idea. You have a combat results table, it's on a differential, and the effects are either no effect, dispersal. So say you have 4 ships attacking, if they get dispersed, then your opponent will just put them separate them into 4 different mini hexes all over the map wherever they like. An interesting combat effect, very helpful. Then the other combat effects are damage to the launched weapons, damage to the NG weapons and psychic weapons, or all units are limited. So in combat you might just get, and it's quite sort of brutal in that, say you have 10 ships in a combat and you get a PW result, then all ships have damage to the psychic weapons, and if any ship has damage 3 times to the same one of those 3 weapons, then it is also destroyed. You can board ships. You can use this if you're fighting with psychic weapons. And then you have the neutrals chart. If you lose a battle, both sides start at 0. If you lose a battle, you go down 1. If you win a battle, you go up 1. When you get to -2, you're not doing very well, but you get a bonus of crew points each turn. Because I forgot to mention that the beginning of each turn is as activate units. When you activate units, you basically spend crew points to buy new ships and plonk them immediately down on one of your owned star systems. So you get bonus of 8 crew points if you go down to, each time you go down to there, you go down there, bounce up, come back. You also, everyone gets, each person gets 10 automatically, and then you get 3 points for every star system. So potentially you start off with 5, potentially you could get, say, 15, but then you've got everything, I don't know. You can do the math, 3 crew points for each star system, so sort of from 15 up or down. And then what happens if you've won battles? You can roll once per turn for gaining neutral allies. On even, you point at an allied system, and on an even roll, once or twice a turn, that ally joins you, so you get more crew points. Then the last page is unit counter mix, so that's very helpful because the Sun Throwers and the Holy Band have slightly different ship types. Interesting ship types, for example, you've got your normal field generator ships, they're kind of like quite wimpy. Missile packs, ground support teams, they're quite weak but very strong against the Star Guard, which are your garrison units. Rangers, they're just average, they're sort of like 4 in each weapon system. Star Cruisers, they're the biggies. Probes, warp line generators, those are the ones that can create warp lines for you. So the Holy Band have Star Busters, while the Sun Throwers have Jammer Swarms. Each side has a luck ship, that's interesting. You have psychic monks on the luck ship, so you can adjust if you're in a battle, you can adjust your roll. And these have got the pressure ships for pulling a star along, those have got the emissary of prayers. And like that, a psychic ship. So that's a quick synopsis of what's going on. I'll just show you, the game comes with... you get a little baggie, you get a business reply mail given to offer you a free catalogue back in 1979. You got the paper board. You got the units which were on a sheet of cardboard, the same size as the game. You have to cut them out, so you need some scissors. The cardboard, where is it? It's very thin, so you might want to back it. I didn't bother. I just quickly cut them out because I've got a plexiglass sheet here, and you don't have too much stacking, so you're not kind of fumbling around with thin pieces and stacks. They get picked up with tweezers nice and easily. You also need a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil, because you have to record your crew point expenditures, at least for the initial 100 that you spend. You also might want to mark down which I've marked down. These units are in forces, and then the force markers on the map. So the gameplay. Let me see if I can move this camera elegantly without annoying viewers too much closer to the game. Do you know, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that, but I think I can move the game closer to the camera. So wait a moment. I'll just adjust this. Okay, that's there. Then I tilt this down. Okay. So I just played a game, my first and only game, and I think it was on turn 3. I had a sun thrower victory. Let's see. So they started a bit scattered. They had forces here at the start, and they both had pressure ships, and they both took a star slowly towards one of the ducts, and one of the forces got wiped out, and the other managed to throw a star through there at the end of turn 3 and won the game for them. It was an interesting game. It's kind of like a bit of a brain burner, because the game, really, you have to work out, it is about the movement, because if you're just moving one hex each turn with your ships, they're not going to get very far, and not much is going to happen. Especially, remember, you have to have something decisive happening within 7 turns for one side, so you need to use his warp line. So a lot of the game is about, and this reminds me a little bit of Titan back from that era, where you had a sort of a complicated hexagonal movement system that graphically made, you had to sort of graphically complicated and sort of complicated in conception, so you had to really kind of think and brain burn out where to go. It's not as complicated as that, but you have to really look and say, right, that line goes there, okay, that stops, but that line goes there to there. Then I could go there, or I could go there, and can I go further from each of those, or how quickly? And maybe I can buy a warp line generator ship and use one of those to sorry, I can't focus while I'm shaking my hands wobbling, and use one of, say, go along a warp line with that, then put that in the next one, then other guys can warp a bit further, and so to give yourself movement bonuses. So it's about a lot of consideration and judgment on how to move cleverly, as quickly and directly as possible to obtain your goal, or to stop, in the case of the Holy Band, to stop your opponent obtaining the goal. Now that's what it is. What else can I, there's something else to say. Yes, about the combat system. The combat system, I guess I didn't really sort of fathom why it was the way it was. It essentially, what you do is say you have 2 forces coming into contact. So I think my last battle was between, I think it was a force A here, or it might have been this one B, and this force C here. And what you do is you can have as many ships as you like, but they come in flights of 4. So this one started out with one flight of 4, the next flight had 4, and then I think there was one more, and then the other one only actually had one flight, I think. But so you divide them in flights, then you roll the die to see which weapon system you're going to be considering that phase of the combat. So there's 3 weapon systems. On a 1-2 it's 1, so equal chance of being one or the other, and that's random. Then you choose a flight, the attacker chooses a flight and reveals it. Then the defender chooses one of their flights and reveals that. So you can see, some ships are equal in sorry, see if that's closer. Okay, can't show you, sorry, I'll go closer. Some ships are equal in their weapon systems, some vary. So for example, the missile pack is strong in launched weapons, obviously, weak in psychic weapons, and ridiculous and void in electronic warfare, energy weapons, sorry, EW. So you have to choose. You might want to put one flight strong in all one type, or you might want to balance them out, and you choose it like that, and then you pit the first flight against each other. You work out the combat differential and take the result. So for example, here they took a PWLW result. Then the next phase of the combat occurs, and you can bring in another flight, and then you add that to the first flight. So you might have, say, one opponent with only one flight of 4 or less ships against an opponent now initially with only a shorter flight, a 4 flight maximum, but now maybe 7 or 8 flights, and then it could go to a third phase. You could have 9-10 flight 9-10 units from 3 flights, and so on like that. So tactically that's quite interesting, and it could be quite tense playing opposed. But what I found, without actually just sort of trying it out, so not thinking too much about what to do in those situations, it felt a bit random. It felt a bit like too involved for basically just a drastic result of either all the flights that were involved at that point are eliminated or scattered, or they all take a weapons system hit. And generally there's no escape from combat or anything like that, so it always ends in one force being either completely dispersed or completely destroyed. And it's like a lot of things from this era, in that it was this interesting an interesting conception that could have been exciting opposed, but I think, and I'm not sure if maybe it was at that time, when these things are all a bit newer, and so people were still kind of exploring it. But here it's just kind of a bit from the